And that's something that you have to remind yourself sometimes. I'm equipped for the season that I'm in. In any area where I have room for growth, the Lord's going to be faithful to empower me in this season to teach me what I need to know. And that's part of walking by faith and putting your hope and trust in the Lord. Hey everyone, and welcome to Called Forth. I'm Dawn Town, author, speaker, and podcast host. So it has been a total hot minute since I've had a solo episode on the Called Forth podcast. The last few episodes have been guest episodes, and so it's kind of nice to come back for a solo episode. And what I really want to cover today is mining the gold from the season that you're in right now. What does a download from God exactly mean? Have you ever heard that term? I got a download. Well, what does that mean? We're going to explore that topic. And then it's also going to be a conglomeration of how to wait patiently for the Lord. I think mining the gold from the things that you walk through is so valuable and important, because when we go through those defining seasons of our lives, the challenges, the hardships, the ups and downs, it's only human nature to want to rush those seasons and get through them and get over them and get past them and move beyond the horizon of the mess that sometimes seasons become, or just the difficulty of what they represent. But I have often found that I would rather get the maximum out of a challenging season than allow that season to be all for nothing. And of course it never is, because naturally from life we learn things, of course, but just that intentionality of choosing, I'm going to mine the gold from this season. Number one, I'm going to identify the season that I'm in, and I'm going to learn to decide what I can appreciate about this season. I can choose to see the beauty of where I'm planted. I can choose to mine the gold that's there. And what does that look like exactly? Well, for me, it's looked like simply asking the Lord in prayer, what season is this for me? And then just that intentionality of looking around at my life and seeing the rhythm that I happen to find myself in this season with what my kids are doing, if they're in school, out of school. I know right now it's summertime, and so it's a different pace for me in summer than it is when they're in school. And so it's recognizing the rhythm of where my life is to know the season that I'm in, and then also asking with the Lord, is there anything I'm not seeing in what the season exactly is for me and what it means for me? And then that's writing things down, it's processing through things, it's making notes on my phone, it's journaling through what this season is. And then it's being intentional to choose joy in this particular season, or choose whatever stands out for you that this season needs to be. And what I mean by that exactly is, if you're sensing that the Lord wants you to lean in on joy, then looking at how you can cultivate joyful experiences in your life. If you feel like the Lord is really wanting you to slow down and reflect and process through some deep things, it's cultivating the space for you to be able to do that. You know, so much of life is looking back and thinking through what we would have done differently, or what we should have, could have, would have done had we know then what we know now. And I do love the idea of trying to look back and reflect and maybe come up with advice that may help some other people. But I also see the other side of all of the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, and how that can leave us in this space and place of regret or frustration that we didn't know. There's this phrase, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something like wisdom is wasted on the young, or I don't know, that might not even be it. But the concept is, why is it that we get so wise later in life when we really could have used it when we were much younger? You know, it seems so unfair and frustrating. Like, why could I not have had the maturity I have now, or the wisdom or the life lessons or the experience that I have now, and then applied it back then? And I would be so much further. I wouldn't have done this or done that, or I would have processed this better, or I would have interpreted this thing in a different way. Yes, I hear you, and I have felt that so many times. But what we have is the here and now. What we have is today. What we have is where our feet are planted in the moment. And so I have found that rather than looking back with regret or frustration over what we didn't know then, is doing everything I can to live awake and aware in the present. The more I can be intentional with being present in my day to day, the more I can save myself even years down the road from looking back with regret. Because I've been in this balance where I've lived in the past and been frustrated with myself, or where I've lived looking ahead to the future and all the things that I want my life to be, and the turns that I want to take, and the steps that I want to take, or the people that I want to meet, or just the landscape that I would love for my life to look like, 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. I've lived in both ends of the extreme. And when I was in the depth of that, I was very much not being present, because all I could focus on was how my life had unfolded way different than I had anticipated. So living in the past, and what I wish my life would become, which is out of my grasp and out of my reach. It's like I can't tangibly pull 10 years down the road or even a year down the road into my present in this exact moment, from the perspective of I can't suddenly overnight completely change my circumstances. What I can do, of course, is change my attitude, my perspective, how I see things, perceive things, all of that, which is, a powerful tool of maturity and mindset growth. But what I find really powerful is not living in either of those places to such an extreme that you can't or don't appreciate the present season that you're in. And that doesn't mean that the present season is easy or that the circumstances are what you want them to be, but it's choosing to enjoy and be intentional. It's in choosing to enjoy life for what it is right now and being intentional with it. And sometimes I feel like this is recycled conversation because I say this all the time, but I'm hoping it hits fresh for you. I'm hoping it hits you in a new way. And maybe you've heard me say it over and over and over again, but my hope is that it sparks something new or different in you. Because no, you may not have the wisdom right now that you'll have 10 years down the road, but you have what you have now, which is more than what you had 5 years ago. And it's what you need for this season. And that's something that you have to remind yourself sometimes. I'm equipped for the season that I'm in. In any area where I have room for growth, the Lord's going to be faithful to empower me in this season to teach me what I need to know. And that's part of walking by faith and putting your hope and trust in the Lord. And where I want to lead this into next is this conversation of what is a download from God? Okay, we hear this all the time, like, oh, I got a download, or the Lord spoke this to me, or this is the vision that I got, or whatever. Like, what does a download mean? And I've often struggled with this because I have spent hours seeking the Lord, like days, months, weeks, like not in congruence per se, like 24 hours a day, 48 hours, or 72 hours, whatever. Clearly I'm living life. But, in my time with the Lord, I have spent so much time seeking Him and feeling like in that prayer time, I didn't walk away with what I thought I would. I didn't walk away with some plan that would change my life. I didn't walk away with this purpose-driven, like timeline, agenda plan that I could then execute and check all the boxes. And then with this formula to then see my life radically change. I didn't walk away with that. And that has caused through the years, a lot of frustration in me, that there's been times where I felt like my relationship with the Lord has been disappointing. So I can't speak to what somebody else might say is a download from God. But what I would say in this process, if you're seeking God for direction for your life, or you're really wanting, you're made for more than what you're living, and you want to do something more, maybe you want to change your circumstances in some way, and you just, you hate your job, or you're in those golden handcuffs, whatever your particular situation is. And so downloads can look different for different people. I think, they can come whether you're, in a time of prayer with the Lord, or they can come in the shower, they can come when you're driving, they can come, any time or space the Lord wants to speak. And for me, sometimes it's just been even the scripture that I needed in the moment. Sometimes it didn't come in the moment, but hours later, He just brings a scripture that comforts my heart, or I hear a lyric to a song, or I have an inkling of an idea that I just need time to process through. It doesn't always come in the form of this full packaged plan. And when we think of, even when we use this language of download, I don't know that feels fully accurate, because when you download something, or I think of, for me, when I download a file, I'm downloading everything that's there. And I don't think that's always how God brings things. He doesn't bring things, I'm not saying He doesn't ever, but I think at least the examples I can use in my own life, He doesn't bring this fully developed plan and just hand it and put it in my lap. It's oftentimes a thought that I give space and time to explore and process through. And I do that through prayer. I do that through time with Him, through reading scripture, and it evolves and unfolds over time. And oftentimes I could never have coordinated it all on my own. Like I could never have planned it all out on my own, because He's brought things that seem completely far out of left field that I never would have chosen. But in the end, those things that He's brought to my life end up being for my good and for my benefit. I even have something coming in the next few months that I'm a part of, that it's not anything I would have chosen for myself. I never would have grown up thinking, oh, I'm going to help in such and such a business. But that's what's unfolding in my life right now. And so I think sometimes if we can even be more clear with the language that we use, it helps us to have better expectations when we are processing through our relationship with the Lord. So for me, I may not identify with the word download, and it can even be more vague than that, like how I sense the Lord's leading me, or what is the Lord speaking to my heart. Everyone's going to have the language that speaks the most to them. So if you ever hear somebody talking about, I got this download from God, and you're like, well, I don't get that. Like, I'm raising my hand. I don't feel like I get this full download package either when I connect with him. And I'm not saying I'll never have that, or that I haven't had the Lord speak things to me that have had layers, certainly. But I want to just demystify this word download. And that leads me into my last point that I want to make in this episode, and that is waiting patiently for the Lord. There is somebody that I'm connected with that gave this word that we need to learn to be comfortable being patient with the Lord. And it was meant for more of a corporate setting, but when I heard it, I thought about how it applied in my own life, because sometimes, like I said, I've been with the Lord, I've spent, 45 minutes, an hour, or even 2 hours or whatever, and I just don't walk away with anything concrete that I wanted, that I went in expecting and wanting. And then sometimes I do. But for those times that I don't, I think it's important that we learn to patiently wait on the Lord and make your prayer time about more than just seeking his will for your life. Integrating time and interceding for other people, expressing gratitude, expressing worship, whatever your time with the Lord looks like. There's no rule book about how it has to look, but not being discouraged because you may go into your time with the Lord expecting something, and yet you walk away with something different, and being willing to go at it and spend time with him again. I'm not this theological preacher, evangelist, biblical teacher. That I can only speak for myself to say, I know I've been challenged in creating more space for me to be patient in the wait. So if this speaks to your heart, just know that you're not alone. And so that is all for this week's episode. Until next time.